Hi, hello and welcome. My name is the Alpha Female and you're listening to Turnbuckle Talk.
Whoa! G'day, mateys. Bushwhacker Luke here, 2015 Hall of Famer, and you're listening to Turnbuckle Talk. Yeah! Whoa!
This is pro wrestling's only modern-day Viking Gunner, and you're on Turnbuckle Talk.
Hey, this is Nick Magnus Tolders, and you're listening to Turnbuckle Talk.
Hi, this is Leva Blue Pants Bates, and you are listening to Turnbuckle Talk.
Hey, this is Jeff Jarrett, the king of the mountain and founder of Global Force Wrestling, and you're listening to Turnbuckle Talk. Hey, fellas, you guys have a great day, and this is only because I'm talking to Canadians. It is actually spitting snow in Tennessee.
See? Oh my God!
That's a great. We've had 70-degree weather here. We really had a warm December, and I get on the phone with damn Canadians and we're spitting snow. So.
My name is Carl Carafel, and welcome to the longest running weekly episodic program here on Love Wrestling. Welcome to Turnbuckle Talk. This week, a little bit of a change going on here. We have a different overlay and we have a new guest showing up here this week. Somebody that I don't believe has been on the program yet, but I'm very happy to welcome the Canadian Goose.
How's it going, brother?
Baby.
I've done this show before, 100%.
Okay.
Me and you did one episode at least.
Okay. Yeah. I wasn't sure, so I'm like, yeah, I better just tout it as that.
Oh no, well, I appreciate the fact that you'll have me on you're having me on a second time. I'm kind of bummed that the first one wasn't super memorable, but what are we gonna do?
This is episode 283 that I'm doing right now. It has been a long time, as you saw in that new little part of the intro there with Jazzy Gabert, with Leva Bates, with Bushwhacker Luke, with Jeff Jarrett at the end there. Joe saying, love that intro. Joe was a big part of those as well. Thanks for stopping in, Joe.
Yeah,
Joe
I was impressed
honk,
with
honk.
all the major talent you had on that thing. Like some of those guys were pretty cool. I was popping for the Bushwhacker guy, and yeah, for sure. And then I was like, oh, Gunner's on here too, and okay, is Gunner? Is he the guy that was he Jackson Riker in WWE?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I've heard he's kind of a chode.
A little bit. I mean, so full disclosure for everyone, I'm a religious person, and I have been all of my life. I believe that there is a higher entity that is out there. Gunner or Jackson Riker or whatever believes the same thing, but is very much so in your face about it right now on Twitter.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to inspire a conversation about politics or religion here. That wasn't my intention. I just, yeah.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, it's all part of professional wrestling, right? Like it's all part of just the attitudes of people that are out there and seeing what happens with them afterwards and where they kind of go in their life afterwards, which, like that's all part of it. It's no big deal. Yeah, Joe saying here that him and I actually talked to a lot of some of the best there, and that Gunner was actually the first wrestler that we actually got to interview, which was really, really cool.
Right on.
I do have to say big thanks to Ryan with Energy Rock Radio. I'm branded for life with Energy Rock Radio. He's the one that really allowed for all of that to happen on his platform of internet radio, which was amazing and fantastic. Doing interviews
up with
is
some of these
something that I've
people
loved.
Yeah, I've of course I don't know, like a cheap plug, but I've just launched Monday Night Shaw here on Love Wrestling, so I am looking for guests to come on the show and chat it up with me. And while normally I use more sort of local guys, I'm always down to talk to people that are famous,
right? And I think you've got the second one is out or coming out.
Yep. The second episode went live yesterday. It was with Tony Novak, who wrestles out of Saskatchewan, and we chatted a lot about our experiences working for CWE and stuff like that. Me and Tony have only met like once, but that's another thing that I like about it is even though I talk to a lot of like local level wrestlers and stuff, I mean, it's still like I could talk. I've done episodes of Monday Night Shaw with people I've never met ever, and it's awesome. Like we just, who's got a problem with turning on a microphone and talking about wrestling for an hour,
right? Right. And especially like Joe says here, corporate Joe, when Bushwhacker Luke answered the phone call, he explicitly told us that he was only wearing his white underwear.
Ooh la
so
la.
you could really do an interview in absolutely anything you want, as long as it's audio only.
Did that make you want him to lick your face?
It did not. Although I think that would have been quite the cool experience.
No kidding.
I do. Interviews are an amazing part of what we do as journalists, as people who talk about professional wrestling. And I want to give a big shout out to Spencer Love right now.
I appreciate that, but I do want to make it clear I am not a journalist. I'll do interviews, but yeah, I am very much like I say, I turn on the thing and we talk about wrestling. I don't go in with a lot of like preparation or anything like that. Very little usually. Literally just turn on the thing, and if I want to know about somebody, I'll ask them questions about themselves and that. Yeah. So
you'll get to the point where you're classified as a journalist.
Okay. Well, I mean, if that happens, then great, especially if it affects my my bank book.
And it might. It definitely might. Spencer Love did an amazing interview with Taya Valkyrie recently, which is live over on the Love Wrestling YouTube page. But I want to give a big shout out to him for actually getting that interview and some highlights of that interview put out onto Fightful.com, which is one of the biggest sites that's out there for people to go and get professional wrestling news, rumors, updates, and stuff like that. So congratulations, Spencer. That is a huge accomplishment. And I think I can speak for everybody at Love Wrestling here. We're really proud of you and what you have accomplished with that. That's amazing. Yeah, Joe.
Okay. I'm telling us about watching Andre the Giant doing drop kicks earlier in his career. Oh,
yeah.
That's what the Bushwhacker guy was talking about.
Yeah, Bushwhacker Luke was during the interview was telling us about him watching Andre the Giant doing drop kicks.
That's nuts.
Right?
I have a difficulty doing a drop kick, you know. And I'm not 400 pounds. Yeah.
What were you going to say? You were going to add something to the comment there.
I was just going to say that, as far as like Love Wrestling and Spencer's interviews go, I would consider Spencer to be like a full-on journalist, and he puts a lot of preparation into his interviews. So like, that's why, like, if me and Spencer ever have the same guest on both of our shows, it's still going to be like a different show because mine's going to be more like on the fly, and he's going to have stuff prepped out and ready to go. And I know that you have like a list of topics and whatnot too. So each show is kind of got its own little differences, which is why I love wrestling. Everybody likes to show up and have fun and talk about wrestling. Yeah.
Right. A plethora of different ways that people can go about doing these shows. And I mean, I like to just kind of have some generalized topics just to kind of keep conversations going. And especially for you that, when you're doing an interview, and if you interview somebody the same as Spencer has as well, right? Like there's two totally different mindsets that come from that. You as somebody who is a worker, as opposed to Spencer, who for a while was just a fan, now turned promoter. So I mean, like you really get different aspects out of it, because there are things that you can talk to that Spencer really wouldn't be able to talk to as a worker. And you can't talk to really the promotional side of things like Spencer could, right? So it's a really nice dynamic being able to have that.
Yeah, 100%. There's definitely different points of view, and I like a lot of the people that Spencer and I have both had on are probably like we're probably talking about like Gigi Ray and Karen and Zoe, and like those are all girls that I've trained with, right? So we have more like stories and stuff that maybe aren't necessarily like world published things, you know?
Right.
Not that we have like secret like weird conversations or anything like that. Anyway, I think we've been kissing Love Wrestling's ass here for a while. And don't get me wrong, it's very sweet and we love it, but we should probably get on with this show and you know, otherwise we've got 10 minutes of plugs at the beginning.
Right? Joe coming in here
Joe
again.
Rogan experience.
Right? Oh God. I love Joe Rogan, don't get me wrong, but you're like, the first half hour you can just skip through.
I literally like I'll listen to his podcast sometimes. Not so much now that it's like solely on Spotify, but back when it was on like you know, whatever the other podcast gimmick is that I used. And every time I would just click fast forward until I heard that music. And it was usually like 7 or 8 minutes into the podcast.
Right.
Because I knew anything before that music was just Joe Rogan going, oh yeah, you got to order some mushroom pills or whatever.
Right. Mushroom pills to male enhancement.
Oh yeah.
Medications and
Is this show sponsored by Manscaped? Because we should probably
This show is. We actually have a spot for Manscaped coming up.
Solid.
Joe's 100% correct here. First, he says he loves Bushwhacker Luke. I do as well. I still do. And
Bushwhacker Luke does death matches?
Yes. Okay. Joe saying the Crazy Mofo still does death matches, for crying out loud. Yeah. You weren't aware of that?
No, I wasn't aware. Don't get me wrong. I had heard that the Bushwhackers back before they became the Bushwhackers, they were the sheep herders, and they were like a really hardcore team, and like they apparently were involved in like some of the major like concession brawls and stuff that happened in the infancy of that style of wrestling. So I was aware that he had done that stuff in the past, but like I honestly like I think. I watched the Hall of Fame, and I'm surprised Homeboy can even move around, let alone wrestle.
Right. Oh God. Like, Bushwhacker Luke is absolutely fantastic, and I still love what he does today.
Yeah.
So totally. You were talking about names like Zoe Sager, who I believe today happy birthday Zoe, right? Yeah. You've actually trained with Zoe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So now the next thing that I have here is that the Nightmare Factory. So I'm sure you know what the Nightmare Factory is. You've heard of it. Everybody's heard of it. Anybody who's, a worker recently or keeps up with it knows.
I've wrestled a guy that trained there.
Okay. Yeah. So they've actually announced that the Nightmare Factory has procured a 10,000 square foot facility that they're moving to. So from Norcross to McDonough, Georgia, they're moving. So the fitness center is still currently open, but the new camp actually begins October 3rd.
How
So now,
far away from their original location is that?
I'm honestly not sure.
Like, is that going to bone over some of the students that are like local guys, or
Probably not. I don't
hope not.
really think so. I think like I can't really speak to out where you are, but I know for like in Ontario, we have like in southern Ontario, like Toronto, Mississauga, like all of those places are all like within 45 minutes of each other, right? I figure that that's probably what this is as well.
I didn't mean to jump right to the negative aspect.
No.
But it was a question that I thought about. I was like, okay, if my trainer decided to move his school to Calgary, then I'd probably be pretty boned over,
Right?
Like, yeah.
Right? No, that's not negative at all. I mean, that's people have to know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure for them, they know. And if for whatever reason it is further, then I'm sure that the Nightmare Factory would offer some compensation.
And
for
I mean,
that,
the Nightmare Factory, like that's a top notch like school too. Like, and with them getting like a 10,000 foot facility and stuff, and so a lot of wrestlers that have made their name in AEW on Dark and Elevation and stuff have come through there. So like, I feel like this is kind of going to be like the AEW Performance Center.
That's exactly where I was going with this. I wanted first, I mean, you kind of really hit the nail on the head there where you said like, it's great to have these facilities. That was going to be something that I wanted to talk about is the need for training schools and for facilities like this that have gyms in them, which 100% we need, because if you're not trained, I don't want to get in the ring with you. But the way that it seems is that this expansion is clearly for that, is for like an AEW breeding grounds, kind of what the old NXT was for, right? The old NXT was kind of like that. You go there, you do your training, and then you get your call up.
Yeah, I would suspect there's not really a
TV
element to this, though. Like, I don't think they're going to be changing NXT, like AEW Dark to AEW Nightmare Factory Showcase or anything. Like, yeah.
No, probably not. I do know that when they do shows, they do have like shows that they do with the people that they've been training with, and they do actually put those out onto YouTube, which is really nice. And they even do them live and stuff like that. So
solid.
Yeah, like it's absolutely fantastic. Now, you, I'm sure, went through some sort of training school.
Yeah.
Was it anything?
It wasn't like an official school. It was more like my training is like I have a weird training background, but because I came in as a ring announcer, and then one day one of the wrestlers was just like, "Oh, I've set up the ring in my backyard if anyone wants to come out and train and stuff." And I was like, "Oh, I'm interested." And he was like, "Well, you're totally welcome. Come on down." And so I started training with him, and we did it for like a couple of months, but it's Alberta. The ring was in his backyard. Don't get me wrong. It's Andrew Hawk. So he's a very reputable wrestler.
Okay.
Knew what he was doing and everything. But in Alberta, it starts to snow at a certain point during the year, and it's not safe to wrestle in a ring that's full of snow. So we ended up having to stop that after a while. And then I kind of went on and wrestled just on small little shows. And, I had a limited skill set, and I just kind of put other guys over and stuff. And then eventually MRB and the Force Wrestling started up, and I joined up with them. And I think that would be more akin to an actual like wrestling school. And so I went there, and I was there for a while, and then that ended up shutting down. And then Metal opened up his school, and that's also a very reputable and still running to this day wrestling school. Yeah.
So you never really had the opportunity to get into a center kind of like this.
Well, like I say, Top Talent Wrestling School is the closest thing now, but it's not a 10,000 foot facility. It's like a garage where there's the ring. Like, it's not a garage. It's like it's a building. It's an industrial building, and there's a ring in there and a couple of workout equipments and stuff like that, and cameras and everything that Metal needs to run shows out of there if he so decides to do that. so that would be the closest, but by no means am I like, I've never walked into a place and been like, oh, there's like 6 wrestling rings in here. And everybody like, the closest would be the Workhorse Fitness Center. I went down to their training academy in Calgary, and they had 2 rings.
Okay.
So, but yeah, they also had a full, like that school was attached to a full gym too. So there definitely would have been some benefits to training over there.
Right. Ed, thank you for coming by, my friend. Ed says, ooh, I like the colors and layout. Also, hi, Carl, and honk honk. Yeah,
Hi,
this
Ed.
is brand new. This is the first show that I'm doing with this new layout. I love the color purple. I love the color orange as well. That's why you kind of see a little bit of orange when people's comments are coming up there.
Okay.
Yeah, so I decided, you know what, I'm going to change things. Sometimes less is more. Going with just a little bit of simplicity is really nice, and that's what I kind of wanted with this new overlay, is just a little bit of simplicity. So I was helping train for a little while. My training, okay, a good majority of my training was done not very well, unfortunately. It was done by somebody that we refer to him now as he who shall not be named.
Oh, lovely. Was it Chris Benoit?
It was not. It was not. This person was very much so a pathological liar, claimed that he was trained, claimed that he was part of the PWI 500 at one point, and all of this shit. And he had a group of about 4 of us that were training on a beach.
On a beach.
Yes.
Yeah, in the sand.
In the
probably.
sand.
Doing power bombs into the water.
Yes. That's
Okay.
exactly what it was, right? Right?
Excuse my language. The one word you told me not to say.
Thankfully, I was able to get away from that carny bullshit.
Yeah.
And I actually got in with a now defunct company called the Superior Wrestling Alliance out of Michigan, Upper Michigan. And I was able to get into a ring, and I was actually able to train properly with like Downtown Bobo Brown and Big Daddy T, and some good people, right?
Yeah.
People who were actually part of good organizations like the NWA, right? Like, so thankfully I was able to get out of that. When I started working with a company here locally, they decided they were going to put their ring outside as well, just like you. Okay. Right? They actually went and bought tarps and like built this little structure, put tarps over the entire thing so that we could still work and train in the winter while they had these big industrial heaters, propane heaters, blowing inside here. It was unreal.
Yeah,
that was unreal.
That's pretty wild. We didn't have anything like that. No, I remember after it rained and stuff, we'd show up and we would take like 14 towels and dry the ring, and then we would be like, okay, it looks dry, let's wrestle. Like, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Joe,
no,
thanks for stopping in.
Can I ask you, like, when you did the beach training, was any of that applicable to, like, when you showed up at the real training, were they like, hey, do you have any skills? And you were like, well, so-and-so taught me how to do this. And then they were like, oh, well, that's pretty good. Or was it like, yeah, so-and-so didn't know what the fuck. Excuse me. That's the second time. Jesus. So-and-so didn't know what the heck they were talking about. I'm really sorry, man.
It's okay. It's okay. Don't worry. Honestly, it was a little bit of both, to be perfectly open and honest with you. I mean, I had been watching wrestling since I was 3 years old, right? So I was the type of kid that would actually sit there and like intently watch to see what they were doing, because my goal in life was to be a professional wrestler.
Yeah.
So that was my learning, right? When I went to the Superior Wrestling Alliance and started working with like Downtown Bobo Brown, I was able to show him some things that we had worked on out on the beach. And he said that they were good, but needed fine tuning. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. But then he asks, can you run the ropes?
No, you probably not.
Nope. Never have I, ran ropes in my entire life because I had to train on a beach.
Yeah.
So he was like, all right.
It would have been a wake up call for you, sure.
That's pretty
like,
shit.
Hitting the ropes for the first few times is painful.
You got the marks down your back. You got your armpit is all, red and tore up. And oh yeah, it was fun. But I kept going back. Yeah, I definitely kept going back.
That's good, and I'm glad to hear it. I just was curious as to whether these beach training had any like value. Like, did anyone just solely do the beach training and then get on shows?
No.
Oh, that's good.
No, because as soon as these people found out that what this guy was doing, they immediately were like,
he got shut down,
and they put a stop to it, right? So he like got shut down hard. So that was my experience of actually starting and training. And it was a bunch of carny bullshit that was going on. It was.
Wrestling is a very dramatic and thing, and there's a lot of times where you do meet some unsavory characters, but
right,
I feel like it's getting better this day and age. Like there are definitely some locker rooms where you're like, okay, they're not putting up with any bullshit in here, and then there's other ones where it's like you could get away with a little bit of stuff, but nowadays, like I don't usually like to pry into other people's business and whatnot, but there's definitely like I say, like in any aspect of life, really, there's unsavory characters, but in wrestling there tends to be a little bit higher percentage. But what are you gonna do? Just
You're right. Going from like this guy that I was training with to former promoters that I worked for being charged and thrown in jail for things that I won't speak about with children.
Gosh.
Really a lot of like unsavory type of crap that you have to deal with in professional wrestling. William Regal is a guy that has really tried to change the professional wrestling business from that carny type of bullshit that we just talked about to making things a little bit more savory, I guess. JPJ, thank you for coming in on vacation again, but just wanted to say, hey, I appreciate you, my friend. Thank you.
JPJ, did you go to Flair's last match? Were you at that show? I'm interested to know. So if you just heard me ask you that question, let me know, because I actually watched that last night, the entire card.
Yeah, he says he did. Yeah, I thought so.
Right on.
He was at Flair's last match. He was at the GCW show. Plus he was at the SummerSlam.
Okay.
On vacation again. Dude,
that's awesome,
wish.
Man. I would have loved to have gone to any of that stuff. I mean, the Flair's last match, you've probably already talked about it, but it was like it had its ups and downs for sure. But one of the things I thought was a little weird about the whole show was it just didn't seem like people were like that stoked for it. Like there wasn't like a lot of like crowd chants or anything like that. Like it was a bunch of like awkwardly, like really. I mean, when I say awkwardly, I don't mean to disparage anyone on the show, because I just meant like there was a lot of like really crazy athletic wrestling on it. And then it was headlined by like Ric Flair at like 80 years old. And poor Rick had a rough night, but which of those three shows was your favorite to attend there, Joe? JPJ, sorry. His name is Joe, right?
I honestly don't know. I've always just known him as JPJ.
I think
how terrible of a friend am I to not know?
because his name is Joe, and we had Mighty Joe as well for a while. So
Right.
in order to alleviate confusion, we ended up dubbing JPJ as JPJ. Well, Mighty Joe got to GCW was his favorite. Awesome. I've heard a lot of good stuff about GCW, and some of their guys have been coming in for us recently. We had what was his name? Jordan Oliver?
Could be.
Yeah, I want to say Jordan Oliver. Yeah, but I don't want to get him confused with the Oliver guy that does all the like food preparation stuff for Thrifty Foods and Sobeys or whatever. But he came in. El Gringo Loco is coming in very soon to wrestle heavy metal. So there's been some pretty cool GCW guys coming around RCW lately, which has been a lot of fun. And,
that definitely would be. I do believe that I remember JPJ actually talking about the GCW show and being in the third row, and how he actually had a friend there with him, and that friend that he had said that was the best show that she had ever seen in her life. Well, I mean, considering she was not really a wrestling fan from what I remember, this was kind of like maybe her first show. That weekend was probably the first couple of shows maybe that she had actually seen, but she had a blast at the GCW show as well.
I don't doubt it. Like, I mean, as somebody who was a casual wrestling fan, for her, who's probably seen like a little bit of WWE and whatnot, to show up at a GCW, and like, I've watched a few GCW shows. They're nuts. I almost did it again. They're crazy. Like, they just like, it's like adrenaline on crack at some points. So I have no doubt that it blew her mind.
JPJ just clarifying there, saying yes, it was. She got the full spectrum for her first weekend with those 3 events. So yeah, she I guess she was at all 3 events with JPJ as well, and did get to witness, a WWE event, a GCW event, and then an independently produced event as well, showcasing a bunch of talent from multiple different companies. That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
100%. And so, I am honestly like jealous that he got to go to Flair's last match, because like even if it wasn't a masterpiece, it was, and it was still hopefully it is Flair's last match. I saw a thing on Facebook yesterday of Flair in Puerto Rico, and I think it was Carlos Colon was punching him out, and I was like, please, I do not want to see Ric Flair wrestle Carlos Colon in 2022.
Nope, I don't either. I do not. I saw that. Yeah, there was the 2 pictures, the one where they're just kind of standing there, and then one where he's no. Yeah.
Unnecessary.
William Regal has been a guy who has always wanted to kind of take the carny stuff out of professional wrestling.
Right. We were talking about William Regal.
Yeah. No, it's all good. So he recently said on his own show, talking about Triple H and how him and Triple H had been working together for years, like nearly a decade, to help develop NXT into the brand that it is today. And I found it really interesting, this quote here. He says he was charging them to get them tryouts with the WWE. He was doing a few things that I didn't like. Although I knew him, I liked him, and I got on well with him, I didn't like the way he was doing that. I don't like that. There are a lot of, we've heard the word carny in wrestling. There's a lot of carny stuff that goes on, and I don't like it. I tried to avoid it, and I tried to change it. I might as well say this, and I'm saying it now. That was the whole point of NXT, was to try to change as much of the carny you hear about the culture of NXT was to change as much of the carny nonsense that goes on in wrestling was to change that. NXT was created to show that we are all polite athletes that you can be proud of. And I thought that that was really interesting considering just aura of professional wrestling and how it can really be seen as a sideshow carny act at times when you're looking at smaller independent promotions that are trying to get themselves out there and get themselves over, right? So really interesting. I thought it was really cool to just kind of hear that from William Regal. Yeah. I have a lot of respect
when they
for that guy.
say carny stuff, they mean like unsavory, like activity and like things that are like not cool and whatnot. Like,
right.
I think like when I think of carny,
I'm not sure if anyone else sees this, but I have a frozen goose on my screen. Well, that means it's a good time here. Let us take a look at some of our sponsors.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Wrestling, a love and a passion we all share. I've started a wrestling brand, the wrestling brand. A brand founded on the aspects of wrestling. Two entities working together to create a product that connect emotionally for people everywhere. Collar and Elbow is the brand. Passion and love for wrestling is the drive. I am Al Snow, and this is Collar and Elbow, the wrestling brand.
Support for Turnbuckle Talk, as heard on Love Wrestling, is brought to you by Manscaped. Who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming champions of the world? Manscaped. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped just launched their 4th-generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. You heard that right, the 4.0. Join over 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code LOVEWRESTLING at manscaped.com. The official Turnbuckle Studio shop is open. Official merchandise from all the favorite shows, plus merchandise you can only find here. Stuff from Turnbuckle Studios. Carl Carafel unboxes. The Boar's Nest with Bubba Duke. Miscellaneous products that you can only find here. Beats and Beatdowns. And Turnbuckle Talk. Find all this merchandise exclusively at carlcarafel.redbubble.com. And welcome back to the longest running weekly episodic program here on Love Wrestling. Welcome back to Turnbuckle Talk. A little bit of, it's live TV. It's live. That's live TV. It's live programming. That's what happens. Shit goes down. Electronics shut down. Shit happens, but it's all good because we did get the Canadian Goose back here with us, bringing him back up on screen. Hopefully this is going to work. All I'm seeing is a black screen from you. So he may have to duck back out or goose back out and come back in. No worries. we're going to continue on talking here some more professional wrestling with some really unfortunate things that have happened as of late that we've learned about. So the first one that I want to talk about is Jay White. So Jay White, one of the most fantastic people in professional wrestling. I love the work that he has. Switchblade Jay White, absolutely fantastic and amazing. He has to leave, and we've got the Canadian Goose back here.
I'm sorry, man. My computer it just went blank and died. And
No, it's all good.
Okay. So then I tried to get you on my cell phone, and then I'm kind of dumb. So every time I tried to go back out of the window, then it closes it. And I'm like, so the computer's back up, and hopefully we don't have any more of those sort of issues. My apologies.
It's all good. It's live. It's live TV. It happens. I get it. It's all good. I'm talking right now about a couple of little small unfortunate things that have happened in professional wrestling. The first being Jay White. Jay White with New Japan Pro Wrestling has actually had to be removed from the August 9th today and August 10th tomorrow shows.
Is he injured?
Well, the official release that I'm getting here is that New Japan made an official announcement revealing that White has been removed from the promotion's upcoming shows. White is apparently suffering from heat stroke-like symptoms.
Oh, okay.
And his removal is a precautionary matter. It was also noted that he did take a COVID test as well, but that came back negative. So we know that it isn't any of those symptoms and everything is okay there. Yeah. He was scheduled actually to wrestle in the Hiroshima Sun Plaza this evening.
Well, if he's got heat stroke, you pretty much I mean, I don't know. I don't recall ever having heat stroke, but I know it's a serious thing. And you wouldn't be able to wrestle. You're dehydrated. Right?
Yeah.
If I don't have if I don't sit there and drink a bunch of water before I go out to wrestle, it gets real rough.
Powerade.
Yeah.
Powerade all the time. I used to drink all the time. Get that fluid, get those electrolytes into me before I went out to work. Always. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we're hoping that Jay recovers quickly. Like I was saying, I'm a huge fan of Jay White. Like I always have been. Switchblade Jay White, current leader of the Bullet Club. Inspiration, right?
I'll be honest, I'm not very familiar with him. I have seen a little bit. I like him, but he's my cousin Dale's favorite wrestler. And
really,
oh yeah. And my cousin Dale, he's one of the few people I'll talk to about wrestling very regularly. So he's definitely a fan of Jay White. I also he told me that Jay White uses the Sister Abigail as his finish, which is the same move I use. So that makes me happy, and I like watching some of his stuff to see interesting ways he sets it up and stuff. Because I've seen some really cool stuff. Like one guy had him in an air raid siren, and then he just kind of fell off the guy's back and went right into it. I was like, oh, I'm gonna steal that.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. Well, I do have to say Dale is a very smart fan.
Yes.
For liking Jay White.
Yeah, he loves AEW.
Okay.
Loves it.
Well,
yeah.
AEW takes me to the next person that we're going to talk about here, and that is a WWE legend who is currently with AEW, and that is Mark Henry. So now Mark Henry joined the Busted Open radio show with Bully Ray, and they actually welcomed Lex Luger onto the program to discuss Lex Luger's upcoming WWE Legends biography that's happening on A&E, which those have been fantastic from what I have seen so far. I've absolutely loved them. They're like 2 hours long, but they don't feel like they're 2 hours long.
Oh, I remember when they did them back in 1999, and they had ones about Mick Foley and Steve Austin and stuff,
Shawn Michaels.
Yeah. The Mick Foley one is one I recall because I'm a huge Mick Foley fan.
These ones here are just as good. I believe that there is 4 of them that are out right now. Lex Luger is happening this coming Sunday, I believe, or maybe it happened 2 days ago.
Okay.
I can't remember now. But
so what did Mark Henry have to say about this?
Well,
was he
in
just
the interview,
plugging it, or like?
Well, no, not really. I mean, Mark Henry was really inspired by Luger's attitude. Especially with him being confined to a wheelchair now, Lex Luger is. He was really inspired to kind of open up about his own issues that he has. So now lots of people have really wondered why Mark Henry is not wrestling on AEW programming, as it was kind of touted that he would be. Well, he revealed that the reason is that he suffers from nerve damage and that he has what are called power surges, where he just absolutely collapses.
Oh no.
And then he needs the use of a wheelchair as well.
Yeah.
So it's really unfortunate.
It sounds like diabetes or something, like.
Well, I don't know. It just says that he just said that he revealed that he's suffering from nerve damage.
Yeah,
and
nerve
that's
damage
the
is
reason
different
why.
than diabetes, but like,
yeah.
I know if you have like a diabetic low, you can get quite like a collapse and stuff. I used to have diabetes; it was rough.
Yeah, and it just like comes on like that. Sometimes you don't even know that. My mom, the same thing. She's a diabetic, and there are times where we could just be out, and then she's just like, "No, give me something now." And she just starts to like sink, right? So
it's scary. It's very frightening because, like I say, it's happened to me before, where you just suddenly like all your energy is zapped, and you're gonna pass out if you don't eat some sugar,
right?
And,
she always had something in her purse, something, just a little something, whether it was a little bit of candy or whether it was some like applesauce. She would carry around little containers of applesauce with her, right?
They always told me to have like a half a can of Coca-Cola and then have a sandwich afterwards to like sustain it. Because if you just drink the Coke, you're gonna be 10 times worse in half hour.
It's gonna go from here to here.
You're gonna crash. Yeah.
Well, it's unfortunate.
But anyway, I do hope that Mark Henry is able to speak with his doctors and hopefully find out what the heck the issue is, and hopefully they're able to cure him.
I hope so too. And I'm sure that he is. I'm sure that he's actually talking with physicians and trying to figure stuff out, which will be good. Now, will we ever see him back in the ring? We don't know, but
I'm trying to think of like some AEW dream matches I'd like to see with Mark Henry, and the only one I can really think of that comes to mind is Mark Henry versus Keith Lee. I think that would be great.
I would say Wardlow as well. I would like to see
that'd be cool.
Henry and Wardlow. Yeah. Who knows? We might get that. Hopefully. Something that fans of Love Wrestling will be getting is something really, really crazy. Ahead of NWA 74, our very own Zach Ralph is going to be talking with Trevor Murdoch.
Oh, cool.
That's happening Wednesday. So that's happening tomorrow. That will be live on Twitch, this channel right here, twitch.tv/lovewrestlingca. Something really special though is if you want to get in on the conversation, you need to go and register for the Love Wrestling Patreon. Go to patreon.com/m/lovewrestlingca. And there's going to be an exclusive audience question and answer that is available to those Patreons to be able to talk with Trevor Murdoch and ask some questions through Zach Ralph. So a special Wednesday night edition of Power Out with the NWA World's Heavyweight Champion, Trevor Murdoch. And that's happening at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I just wanted to make sure that we talked about that because that's huge.
Yeah, that's a big opportunity for anyone that wants to speak with Trevor Murdoch. I remember Trevor Murdoch back in the day, and he was in a very popular tag team with Lance Archer, Lance Cade.
Lance Cade, yeah.
Lance Archer is a completely different guy.
Yes, he is.
Yes.
That's the Murder Hawk.
Yeah. But Trevor Murdoch's he's not somebody I've heard a lot about like recently or anything, but I remember liking him because he was different than everybody else.
Right.
Like that's the one of the things where you were saying earlier about how William Regal wanted everybody in NXT to become across as polite athletes and stuff. And I was kind of like, okay, well, I don't want people in NXT to come across as carny sleazebags, but
Right.
I don't want everybody to be a polite guy. Like there's got to be one or two like country hick assholes that'll just beat you up or whatever. Like, you know, like I think variety is the spice of life in professional wrestling. So like I don't think everybody should be exactly the same, or it gets too cookie cutter and then you're just watching the same match over and over again 8 times on a show. And yeah.
Well, I mean, not that I think that that William Regal was meaning that everybody needs to be like polite and doing like the same thing as everybody else on the show, but being more that polite outside of the ring, like being that type of person. Ed, you're so right.
Let's not be like douche canoes and burn the towns and venues and stuff. Yeah.
Ed is saying Trevor is doing a hell of a job in NWA. I fully agree with that. With Tim Storm kind of taking a little bit of a step back in the NWA as a mainstay there and kind of going more onto commentary. Trevor Murdoch is a guy that kind of really stepped up and has had some amazing matches and programs with Nick Aldis. And yeah, I think he is doing an absolute amazing job. Astrid, love you, girl. Thank you for coming in.
I'm surprised that there wasn't a whole lot of sorry.
Goose is here too, Astrid. Do you see that? Goose is here too.
I was just going to say that I was surprised that there didn't seem to be a whole lot of NWA representation on the Ric Flair's last match show.
Right.
I thought that was weird. They had like Jim Crockett Promotions was plastered everywhere, but I don't believe I saw one mention of NWA.
Because I don't believe that it was an actual NWA event.
Yeah.
It was simply a Jim Crockett Promotions event that was going on. So I don't think the NWA had anything to do with it, short of allowing some of their workers to possibly work the show.
Yeah, which that's why I'm surprised, because Flair was a big part of the NWA, huge.
Yeah. Yeah. So Ed's right here. Conrad Thompson actually bought the name, Jim Crockett Promotions.
Okay.
He thinks.
I mean, I'd be down to watch more of their shows. Right. Like it was good. It had a very 70s or 80s like kind of throwback feel to, especially like every time they went to like just plug something and they came up with this like music. I was like, oh, this music is interesting. Like, I feel like this would fit right in as the soundtrack to like some porno or something. Like it was, it was weird. Right. It was like jazzy saxophones and whatnot. Like,
yep. That's exactly what it was, like that 1970s kind of transition vibe music. Astrid, of course, saying that she is watching NXT as well. Of course she is, because at 10 p.m. tonight, you're actually going to get the double feature once again of NXT, where they talk all things NXT, as well as Power Out happening right after NXT is over. But she does say, hey, Goose.
Hey, how you doing? I will say I'm interested to see how NXT kind of goes from here on out. Now that like Vince McMahon is gone and Triple H is sort of in charge and now the head figure again. I'm wondering if NXT is going to see like a bit of a facelift, because it kind of went from being really awesome to being kind of cheesy.
It did. They are doing some pretty good things over there, though. In NXT, they're it's still watchable. It's still enjoyable to me.
Yeah, and I mean, it's only the second week that Triple H has control, and I don't expect them to immediately abandon their rainbow color scheme and go back to the black and gold or anything like that.
Right.
But like, I don't know. Like, there's been like things have been happening. I think on Raw last night, Dexter Lumis showed up. So like, and then Karrion Kross showed up on SmackDown. and Dakota Kai was on SummerSlam. So like they're making moves. I'm just curious to see how that affects NXT, because it's kind of like I don't want to be like reductive, but it's kind of like the C show. So like Triple H's main focus is probably on Raw and SmackDown, and I'm curious as to whose main focus is NXT, and what kind of changes we're going to see within that system, because I think that's the most interesting one, where it's got the most possibility to be different.
Right. It definitely does. Now, those names are exactly, I literally just had that up on my screen, like all of those different names. So Bailey returned, Dakota Kai, Dexter Lumis, Karrion Kross, Scarlett Bordeaux, all names that under the 2-week regime of Triple H have all come back.
Yeah. And they're stars. Like they're presented as big deal. Like,
right. And that's the thing. So now we all know that, and Ed, yes, for Ed, NXT 2.0 has been the most enjoyable wrestling show for his viewing habits. And that's fantastic. A lot of people enjoy NXT 2.0. It does have a lot more professional wrestling that is on it, as opposed to what we're used to seeing with like Raw and SmackDown, or even starting to be with like AEW, where there's, wrestling and then, 10 minutes of promos, and then, so NXT really does a very good job in that time frame that they have to put out professional wrestling and still tell stories. NXT 2.0 has done very well for themselves. Now, you talk about the changes. So Triple H, we know, under the black and gold regime, was the driving force behind all of it, behind all of these independent stars from other companies coming in and becoming WWE talent. We don't have that Triple H there anymore, but who we do have is Shawn Michaels. Now, I'm hoping that Triple H is going to kind of look at Shawn and go, this is your baby now. Make good. Do me proud.
Okay. I mean, I don't know if Shawn Michaels has any experience as like a booker or like a creative guy or anything. I mean, I'm sure
him and
he's
Triple H
his own
were running
angles and whatnot, but
but him and Triple H were running the black and gold.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know. I thought it was like a Triple H soul situation there.
No.
Like the thing I think about the difference between Black Gold and the current one, like you say, is the current one has a lot of wrestlers where I'm not just saying anybody's bad or anything, but I don't really know who any of them are. Whereas Black and Gold would constantly be bringing in people, big names from the indies. You get your Keith Lees and your, all these really big name indie guys. And then on NXT now, I'm watching and I'm seeing like new teams that I'm very unfamiliar with, and not just teams, but wrestlers in general.
Yes.
But there's some that I'm quite high on. I like Roderick Strong. He's really good, of course. I like his group. I watched him wrestle Damon Kemp recently. I think Damon Kemp is good, but like again, it's like just a dude I'm not familiar. I don't know who he is. I've never but I like the show for sure. When I have seen what I have seen from it is pretty good, and I'm also becoming a fan of Braun Breaker.
Right.
I still think he has a terrible name, which I believe we discussed in detail last time I was on Turnbuckle Talk. But I thought his promo was pretty good. Yeah, he was doing a promo against JD McDonough when I watched, and I thought it was good. JD McDonough, though, I don't know if he's much of a threat to Braun Breaker, because Braun Breaker's like twice his size.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm really high on Joe Gacy.
Okay.
Now. Yeah.
Did he used to wrestle on the indies for like CZW and stuff?
I believe so. Don't quote me on that, but I believe so.
Okay.
I vaguely remember seeing him somewhere, but I don't know where.
Yeah, I seem to recall from back in the day watching like old CZW and stuff that there was a guy called Gacy. I think it was this guy, but I'm not 100%,
Could be. I love his work in the ring. I love the gimmick that he's got going on right now. Like all of it is just.
Yeah, he looks pretty demented. He's kind of like a modern day. Like he gives me Bray Wyatt vibes. You know,
Bray Wyatt mixed with. So this, I'm sure you know this name, Waylon Mercy.
I've heard the name. Yeah, I like Waylon Mercy's kind of a takeoff on Cape Fear, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I find like just from my impression that I've got from Joe Gacy is he's a little bit more like he's not as like deranged and out there and like there's not as much of a horror aspect to it, but he's got that sort of deranged, sort of psychopathic, like almost in a corporate way. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, yeah. And then I saw last week when he has his new buddies. They used to be British tag team, the Grizzled Young Vets.
Yes.
So they're now
who totally look different.
Yeah. So he's giving me like vibes of like Bray Wyatt and like Raven, that kind of thing. So I like a good wrestling cult leader. There's no doubt about that.
Right. So if I were to say the name Dan Spivey from years ago,
do
you remember that name?
That's Waylon Mercy, isn't it? The same guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, like that whole character there was just, it felt very like cultish, right? Like cult leaderish, just like Ed is saying there. And that's the total vibe that I get from Joe Gacy, but I absolutely love it.
Yeah. I mean, if you like that Waylon Mercy and even Bray Wyatt and stuff like that, I highly recommend checking out Cape Fear, the movie with Robert De Niro and Nick Nolte in it. It's one of the best like horror movies. Like it's so good. It's got an amazing like song. Like the theme song would be such a good theme song for a wrestler to come out to, because
Right.
like immediately you're like, oh, this guy's gonna hurt somebody. Like yeah.
Ed saying that Dan was more Bray Wyatt than Joe Gacy, to me. No, and I totally feel that as well.
Yeah, that's the
100%
thing.
I
Like I feel like Joe Gacy's a bit more clean cut, you know?
Yes.
Like he's not coming out with dreadlocks and looking all gross, and he's very clean cut about the way he's presenting himself, which is different. So. It's like different from Raven and Bray Wyatt, who are kind of, you know, sleazy.
Right.
That's
a good way to put it.
They probably smell like cigarettes, or you know, like
cigarettes and booze. Yep. So we were talking about Black and Gold. We're talking about Triple H. Talking about the new regime that's really happening with Triple H. This is where we get to the last topic of the show, where we're going to be talking about get the E out and a little bit of speculation on someone else's part. So during a panel at the Gathering in North Carolina, Jerry Jarrett.
Jarrett was at the Gathering in North, like the ICP Gathering?
I don't know if it was the ICP Gathering. No.
Oh, okay. I thought that's what the gatherings were. It was like the Gathering of the Juggalos or whatever. And I was like, why is Jerry Jarrett there?
Could you imagine?
Like in his chicken salad.
Could you imagine?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why not? Why not? The Juggalos are always talking about chicken hunting, right?
Yeah. I was watching when he was on the Flair's last match thing, and I was like, oh, this is Jerry Jarrett guy. He looks like I don't know. He kind of looked like he was like medicated or something, you know, like he didn't see him all together like with it.
Right? No, you're right. Yeah. He didn't. But he definitely is, though.
Okay.
Yeah. He just really hasn't been on screen in.
Yeah. No, he's he's a very elderly man. So like,
yes.
But I don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to crap on him or disparage him at all. I'm just saying that he had kind of a blank look in his eye.
Yeah, he did.
Anyway, so Jerry Jarrett was at the Gathering. We've established that. It might have been an ICP thing. We're not sure.
We're not 100% sure, but it happened in North Carolina. So, I mean, anything that happens in North Kakalaki definitely could be anything part of the Juggalos.
Okay.
So he's there, and he commented on Vince McMahon's retirement from the WWE and how he feels Triple H will do in his new role. So this is what he's quoted as saying. They didn't tell me not to tell anybody, so I'll tell you. Hunter called last week, the Raw crew and SmackDown crew together and said, my father-in-law and Stephanie's father, we admire him and we respect him. He reached success that we would never know without him, but we don't know how to do it his way, and we're not going to try to. We're going to try a new way. And I think the new way is to put wrestling instead of sports entertainment. I mean, that's pure speculation on my part, says Jerry Jarrett. That's where I get this whole thing of get the E out. I'm really hoping that this may be something that actually comes to fruition, where we actually see more focus on professional wrestling as opposed to the full entertainment side of things, because just as Triple H says there, they can't do what Vince did. They don't know how to do what Vince did.
Yeah,
so they have to do things their way.
Probably wired very uniquely.
Yeah. While I have a drink of my non-sponsored Dr. Pepper, why don't you give me your take on those comments there from Triple H to the crew?
It seems like an accurate thing to like. Why would you want to, like, you know, like, it's Triple H wants to be his own man and stuff, and like, if you just try and go in there and do a cheap impression of Vince McMahon, like, we've seen that over the years. Like, we've seen it in TNA and other places where it's just like they're just trying to do a cheap imitation, and that's what it comes across as. So
yes,
don't get me wrong, I'm not a person that will sit here and advocate for let's take all the entertainment out of wrestling and just have like athletic contests. Like, I think that the entertainment value, the promos, the trash talking, the angles and stuff is all like a very, very important part of the presentation. Like, I mean, I wrestle as the Canadian Goose and I honk and I have feathers on. Like, I'm obviously, you know, going to be a little biased in this way, but I do think that having a bit more focus on that sort of stuff and then less focus on like cheesy juvenile humor and, you know, things that, you know, maybe Vince McMahon would have found them funny or whatever, but they're not really over anyways. Like, if you're going to do cheesy, goofy stuff, at least make it over cheesy, goofy stuff.
Right.
You know? So.
Right. So yeah. That's, I mean, it's all speculation at this point.
I just watch people have athletic matches where they fight. Watch UFC, like,
right?
You know,
or I would suggest if you're the professional wrestling fan, watch New Japan.
But yeah,
New Japan,
so.
I know, does once in a while, you know, kind of have their, what would you call it? Comedy. They have, you know, once in a while, there's a little bit of a comedy act there, but hey.
And it's one of those things, like, it's a very much peanut butter and jelly are mixed now. There's no separating them. Like, it seems to me like the best way to do that would be to, you know, maybe make it focus it and make it a little more realistic and stuff. But also, like, yeah, I watch wrestling to have fun. You know, so if you put fun things to watch on my TV, I'm not going to be angry about that. Like, it's entertaining, and like I do watch it for the amazement of the sport, and I'm always dazzled when I see two guys do a moonsault to the floor, like at Ric Flair's last match. I saw Alan Angels and Bandito. They both did a moonsault to the floor at the same time. I was like, oh, wow, that was incredible. I hadn't even heard anyone talk about this. And I feel bad for those boys that took such an incredible risk. And like, it's just, they did it. Now it's done. And let's move on. Like, no, they did a moonsault to the floor. Like, come on, like, let's give them props. You know, I don't know. I personally feel like entertainment is an important part of wrestling, and I don't know. I think people are gonna probably maybe have a different opinion than I do, but like,
I think the right type of entertainment.
Yeah. Like
the
I don't.
moves that happened in the ring, like you said, the double moonsault to the outside, that's entertaining. As Ed points out in the comments down below here, remember, Triple H helped write the DX stuff. He loves the immature, childish humor too.
I mean, the thing about the DX stuff was the whole, like I was talking earlier, like at least it was over cheesy stuff, you know?
Right.
So, like, if he's gonna come up with more cheesy stuff that's real over, then I'm all for it, and I'm here for it, you know. But I don't think that cheese is gonna be his focus.
No,
and nor should it be. Like,
no.
you know, like the comedy should be like something that, you know, is used as a like a buffer between, like, you're gonna have these two guys go out and open the show, and it's gonna be an incredible, like, outstanding match, and then you're gonna have a little bit of a comedy thing so people can laugh and have experience some different emotions before we ask them to full on go in and be like, okay, now check out this other athletic match,
Right.
where, you know, we're so.
Goose, this has been absolutely amazing. I appreciate you hopping on here and talking some professional wrestling with me. I do want you to take this screen here, and you are going to tell everybody where they can find you, what you've got coming up. The floor is yours.
Well, the best place to get a hold of me is probably at Canadian Goose KS on Twitter, or as Kyle Shaw on the Facebook there. Just Kyle Shaw. You'll see that I do have, like, my profile picture is a picture of me as the Canadian Goose, or right not. I'm also on the Instagram, and I think my name on there is the.canadian.goose. And it is for sure. I just checked. Also, please, if you are interested in supporting myself, the Canadian Goose, sign up for, or not sign up for, excuse me. Go ahead and visit my Redbubble page. I know that Carl has one. I also have one. I got over 10 designs, probably like 13 or 14 t-shirt designs, and Redbubble is an awesome little Canadian company. So if you're a fan of the Canadian Goose and you live in Canada, you're not going to get overwhelmed with, like, confusing exchange rates or steep shipping charges. Like, I can literally have Redbubble print me a t-shirt, send it to my house, and I've had them do that a few times. This is one of them, and every shirt has been under $30. So $30 is a little on the higher price side, but if you were to go to a wrestling show and buy a t-shirt, $30 would not be considered an unreasonable price at all. And so, so for $30 you can have a t-shirt emailed or sent to you, mailed to you physically. But there also are like hundreds of other items. Like, you can have the designs printed on shower curtains or clocks or phone cases, you know. So there's a ton of different things on there, and I highly recommend any of my Canadian fans go check that out. And if you're an American fan and you see something up there that you like, let me know, and I'll see about putting it up on Pro Wrestling Tees for you. Because I have a store there too.
And tell everybody about Monday Night Shaw.
Oh yeah, Monday Night Shaw is right now I'm doing it bi-weekly, so every 2 weeks. I've released so far an episode with Bobby Sharp, who recently made his return to wrestling after a hip replacement surgery. And then just recently with Tony Novak, who wrestles out of Saskatchewan, and me and him chatted a lot about his experiences with the CWE and just traveling around and being a young wrestler in general and whatnot. And then the next one that will be going up is with Derek Cross from Calgary, Alberta, who was one of the first students in Lance Storm's wrestling school. He was part of the first class ever. And so I talked to him about that, talked to him about some of the unique wrestling moves that he did. We wrestled each other recently in Red Deer. And so we talk about that a bit too. And I'm looking forward to airing that one. That'll be out in 2 weeks.
And for all of those episodes, make sure that you're going to the Love Wrestling YouTube page. They will be posted there. Have they gone out onto Twitch as well?
I don't think they air. I don't think that Spencer puts them on Twitch because I record them ahead of time. I don't do them live.
Okay.
Just for scheduling purposes and stuff. So I'm pretty sure he's putting them up on YouTube, and there may be a podcast. Like they might be going up on podcast apps as well. I believe they are. I know that. I don't know if you have the link or whatnot, but Spencer is looking for people to rate the podcasts and get them up in the top 10 Canadian wrestling podcasts or whatnot. So, yeah, if you have an opportunity to vote for Love Wrestling or Monday Night Shaw as part of that, then please do.
Definitely. Thank you so much again, Canadian.
Hey, man, thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
I love it. I love having people on here just shooting this shit and talking about wrestling. To follow everything Turnbuckle Talk, make sure that you're following at TB Talk Pod on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And make sure that you are checking out Turnbuckle Studios over on YouTube, where you will get to see not only past Turnbuckle Talk episodes, but you'll get to see Beats and Beatdowns episodes. You will get to see Carl Carafel unboxes, The Boar's Nest with Bubba Duke, and who knows, there may even be more things that are added as well. So make sure that you're sticking around to Turnbuckle Studios for all the latest stuff coming out from not only myself, but others as well. To end off the show here, we're going to give you guys a little preview for season 2 of Beats and Beatdowns. Remember, everyone, the world's a scary place. Take care of each other.